Hello, spiritual gangsters, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Amanda Pieraldi, and today we're going there. We're talking about something that doesn't always get said out loud, but you can feel it in a room. We're talking about the energy of unspoken resentment. Because here's the thing, resentment doesn't just show up one day out of nowhere. It builds, quietly, subtly, layer by layer. It's in the moments you bite your tongue instead of saying what you really feel. It's in the times you say, it's fine, when it's actually not. And it's in the repeated patterns where something doesn't sit right, but you convince yourself to let it go. Until one day, it's not little anymore. It's heavy, and you can feel it. Not just emotionally, but energetically. Because resentment has a frequency. You might not be saying anything, but your energy is. Your tone changes. Your patience gets shorter. Your body feels tense around certain people. You start pulling back without fully understanding why. And the wild part? The other person can feel it too, even if they can't name it. Even if they don't consciously recognize it, energy doesn't lie. You can say all the right things, but if your energy is carrying frustration, hurt, or unspoken truth, it'll come through every time. And this is where things start to shift in relationships. Because unspoken resentment creates distance. Not always physically, but emotionally. It creates a disconnect. You're there, but you're not really there. You're showing up, but you're guarded. You're present, but part of you has already checked out. And that's a hard place to be. Because on the outside, everything might look fine. But underneath, there's tension. There's buildup. There's a conversation that hasn't been had. And here's where we have to get honest. Resentment is often a sign of self-abandonment. I know, that one might hit. But think about it. Resentment usually comes from repeatedly not expressing a need, a boundary, or a truth. It comes from saying yes when you want to say no. From overgiving without being met. From tolerating something that doesn't actually feel okay over and over again. And every time you do that, a little part of you keeps score. Not in a petty way, in a protective way. Your mind is like, hey, this doesn't feel good. And your body is like, we're not good with this. And your energy, it starts to shift. Because you're not being honest. Not with them, and not with yourself. And I want to be clear about something. Resentment doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a human who hasn't been fully expressed. That's it. But if it goes unchecked, if it stays unspoken, it doesn't just disappear. It grows. It turns into frustration. It turns into emotional distance. It turns into disconnection. And eventually, it can turn into something that breaks the relationship entirely. Not because of one big moment, but because of 100 small ones that were never addressed. So what do we do with this? How do we move through resentment without blowing everything up or shutting everything down? We start with awareness. We start by noticing it, without judging it. Instead of pushing it away or pretending it's not there, we get curious. Where's this coming from? What feels unmet? What haven't I said? Because underneath resentment, there's usually a need. A need for respect. A need for support. A need to be heard. A need to be valued. And when those needs go unspoken, resentment becomes the voice. But here's the shift. You don't need to let resentment speak for you. You can speak for yourself. And I know that that's not always easy, especially if you're someone who avoids conflict, especially if you're used to keeping the peace, especially if you've learned that expressing yourself might lead to tension, rejection, or discomfort. But avoiding discomfort doesn't create peace. It creates buildup. Real peace comes from honesty, from clarity, from saying the thing before it turns into something heavier. And no, this doesn't mean you come in hot, pointing fingers and unloading everything all at once. This isn't about blame. This is about communication. It's about saying, hey, something's been sitting with me and I want to talk about it. It's about expressing how you feel without attacking. It's about giving the other person a chance to meet you instead of silently expecting them to read your mind. Because they can't. No one can. And holding someone accountable for something you never communicated, that's where resentment really takes root. So we shift. We take responsibility for our voice. We take responsibility for our boundaries. We take responsibility for how we show up. And we trust that the right people, the people who truly care about you, will want to hear you, will want to understand, will want to meet you halfway. And if they don't, that tells you something too. Because healthy relationships aren't built on silence. They're built on honesty. They're built on mutual respect. They're built on the willingness to have uncomfortable conversations so that resentment doesn't have room to grow. Now, let's talk about releasing resentment. Because awareness and communication are powerful, but sometimes there's already buildup there. Sometimes there are things that have been sitting for a while. And releasing resentment isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about processing it so it doesn't continue to live in your body, your energy, and your relationships. That might look like journaling it out, saying the things you haven't said on paper first. That might look like having a conversation or multiple conversations. It might look like creating space if needed. But most importantly, it looks like choosing not to carry it forward. Because holding on to resentment doesn't punish the other person. It weighs on you. It drains your energy. It affects how you show up, not just in that relationship, but in others too. And you deserve to feel light. You deserve to feel clear. You deserve to feel aligned in how you love, how you communicate, and how you show up. So if you've been feeling that heaviness lately, if there's something sitting under the surface, if you've been telling yourself it's fine when it's not, this is your sign to check in, to get honest, to clear it. Not in a reactive way, in a grounded way. Because your voice matters, your needs matter, your energy matters. And when you start honoring that, resentment doesn't get to build the same way. It gets addressed, it gets processed, it gets released. And your relationships, they become stronger because of it. More honest, more aligned, more real. All right, spiritual gangsters, that's what I've got for today. If this episode hit home, take some time with it. Reflect on where you might be holding on to something unspoken and what it would look like to release it. And as always, thank you for being here, for showing up, and for doing the work, because it matters more than you know. Until next time, stay aware, stay honest, and remember, what you don't say doesn't disappear. It shows up in your energy. Talk soon.